So much is going on with real estate commissions currently, and whether you're in real estate or not, I highly recommend that you tune in to this podcast. We're actually going to break it into two, but tune into this podcast with me and my girl, Paige Fingerhut Charnick. Sometimes life just sucks, and sometimes it freaking rocks. We will discuss all the things from family and real estate to travel and just life in general. So take a seat, or don't, you do you, and welcome to the Lambadass Podcast.
Hey girl, hey, I'm so excited.
Oh my gosh, you have no idea how much it means to me that you, first of all, are even here, because for those of you who don't know, we film in the city of Corona, and Corona, California, and Paige is an agent, a fantastic agent with Beach Equities in Long Beach. I almost said Laguna Beach, and I know you're not in Laguna Beach.
Hey, I still there too sometimes,
Amen,
so it's all
sis.
right.
Amen. In Long Beach, and she is one of my sweet, sweet friends. We actually met through the Tom Ferry organization, which is a coaching organization for real estate agents.
We actually met because we had the same coach for a while.
We did.
She brought us together.
She did, and I'm so grateful because actually a lot of her first coaching clients are some of my really good friends.
Same.
So I'm grateful for that. So thank you for making the trek. I know you have to go out to the desert anyways, which is so funny. I need you to send me the link for that listing.
I will. Hopefully we'll do that deal.
Oh my gosh, that would be amazing. She walks in today, for those of you who are tuning in, she walks in today and she's like, so I have to go out to the desert. And I was like Palm Desert? And she's like, yeah, like that area, Sun City. And I'm like, what the heck for? She's like, I have a listing out there. So Paige does a lot of probate sales, and those take you, I would imagine, all over Southern California.
They do. My clients are really particular, and if they call me and want me to handle the sale, they usually want me to handle it personally. So I do have a lot of referral relationships, like with you, for example, where when I can refer, I do. But sometimes my clients will want me to handle it personally. So I do all over Southern California.
I sold a house in Chula Vista. That is
legit
2 hours from where I live. So
we do what the clients want and what's best for them. So with our counsel, which is kind of like, what we're going to talk about, which I'm so excited, like leads right in because it's all
stoked
about like what's best for the consumer.
But I have one quick question about probate. So who is your customer then if you're in probate?
So technically it can be a few different things. So the attorney will frequently refer me to the personal representative or the administrator of the probate estate.
Got it.
Or the attorney will refer me typically to a successor trustee. And sometimes I come by those referrals, from other trust and estate planning professionals like CPAs or financial planners or home care people too.
Sure.
So I live in that whole trust and estate world, and they usually refer me to the client. So I view them as my clients, even though really they're referring me to the admin.
That's why I was asking, because I was like, I don't think that the actual people who owned the estate or their heirs, had any say. But that makes sense.
Well, and I'm often brought in when families are fighting. So I'm referred in as like the neutral third party.
That's okay. So that's kind of great because you have nothing for either party, and your goal is to just get it sold for the most money possible.
And what's best for the estate. Yeah.
That's amazing. Okay. Yeah. So I really, really, really want to talk about this real estate commission thing because
let's talk about it.
I have a feeling though that this is like, I see it all day, every day because I'm in real estate. I feel like the average consumer probably doesn't see it all the time. And let me explain why, because you're looking at me like I'm a little crazy.
I was like, where are you going?
Okay. Because when lawsuits first broke out, like in Missouri, I think it was, and they started suing, what had happened was somebody went in and said, my agent didn't let me know that commissions were negotiable, and I didn't realize that I was paying the buyer's agent. And I want to stop there really quick and just say it really makes me wonder how you didn't understand how commissions worked when you bought the house to begin with. Because my question is, well, then who paid your agent when you bought the house? Like, if you knew that you weren't out that money or you didn't have to come to the table with those additional funds, like, what the hell did you think was happening? You're not that dumb. You're not going to fool me.
You also get a closing statement that itemizes every single fee in the transaction. And I will say, if you get a HUD settlement statement that has all the lines on it, that's a little harder to read. But typically you will get an escrow statement on the buy side and the sell side that tells you exactly what's being paid and how much and who the vendor is. It's all disclosed. I mean, that's part of RESPA. So yes, I agree with you that, the people that are making a lot of money in this are the attorneys and are the actual original. I mean, they made it a class action, but the
Right.
original plaintiffs are going to have a large payday.
Which is totally crazy to me. And I will also say that in the state of California, our contract is actually written to state that the listing the sellers are paying the listing agent, the listing brokerage, a certain percentage. And of that percentage, the listing broker is then going to give the buyer's broker that lump sum.
This is where I think we would both give our state props, like our California Association of Realtors. Their forms are phenomenal. Their legal department is insane.
Agreed.
In a good way. And our listing agreement, yeah, like you're saying, it's broken out. So you can see the total commission and you can see the fee being paid to the list side and the buy side very clearly. And I guess it's not always discussed, which is why this lawsuit came about. But for good practicing professionals, it is always discussed. Like you and I would never not be discussing that with our clients.
I don't think anybody can convince me that it's not being discussed, because if somebody meets up with you and wants to discuss how you are going to work for them and what you're going to do, you're going to want to know what those fees are.
Exactly.
So that's one of the first things when I sit down with the client in a listing appointment. By the way, I got 4 listings last week. Hey, girl. Hey.
I've been watching this on. So yeah, you've been on a listing appointment machine.
I have been crazy. Thank you. And then actually 5. I got another one with one of the agents in my office who's a newer agent. She got her listing on Monday that I went on with her. So anyways, we've gotten 5 listings in 7 days.
I was going to say a week or 2.
I'm so excited. And I leave for vacation because my kids are going to be on spring break.
It's the realtor curse.
I'm telling you.
Get the business on vacation.
Curse with
yes.
air quotes, because I love it. But and I have a team, so I'm all set up and ready to go. But anyways, the first thing I do is explain the commissions, because I think that whether they're concerned about it or not, and I would say 8 times out of 10 they're not, because they know me already.
Right.
And they just want me to do my job, and not that they don't care what I cost, they just know that I'm worth what I'm going to charge.
And you've told them.
Yes, of course.
Mm-hmm.
So when I sit down with them, I go over commission first, because if they are concerned about commission, they're not going to hear anything else that I say until I go over it. So I go over commissions, and then this is what I'm going to do for you. So now I've told you what it is. This is how I'm going to work for my fee.
Right.
So it's just mind-blowing to me. I don't understand how. Go.
So, but let's talk about the flip side to that, the buy side, right?
Okay.
So that's, I think, at the crux of some of these lawsuits is what is your buyer client understanding how you're getting paid? Because when you take a buyer out to go look at property, which, we're both, I think, I'm a little listing heavy. I think you're pretty even.
I was 60-40 the last 2 years.
Yeah.
60 for listings, 40 for buys.
Yeah. So admittedly, on the buy side, I'm a little leaner, right? But I still have a good, 20-25% of my clients are buyers.
Sure.
They're usually coming to me through referrals. And this is a distinction I would like to make to agents. I don't know if the consumers really see this part, but when you are getting a referral, right?
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to an online lead, which a lot of agents are churning and burning.
Right.
Right. And it's a different relationship. And I know you work by referral a lot too.
Yes.
And so when a buyer comes into my schedule, so to speak, they're either referred from a past client, or they are a past client, or they've been referred by someone who knows, likes, and trusts me. And so we already have that element of we're going to be working together.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just having this conversation with someone where I was saying, I don't currently do a formal sit-down buyer presentation. I certainly will be adding it to my repertoire.
Of course.
But as I talked through with the person of what I do for buyers, right?
Mm-hmm.
I explained to them, I was like, well, we show a house, but these are the conversations I'm having as I'm showing them the houses, right? And I'm explaining all of the things that would go into a formal buyer representation agreement through the course of showing 3 to 5 houses in one day. So the person said back to me, they were like, well, Paige, you're really doing a buyer form, not a form. Yeah, you're really doing a buyer presentation, but you're just doing it inside of houses instead of inside of your office.
True.
And I felt that to be true. But I think what's happening is that if you're not being referred in and you don't have that instant rapport with a buyer, and you are just meeting someone that's an online lead, you've barely verified them, and agents are just going and opening doors at houses, right? And you haven't had that fiduciary, I'm representing your best financial interest conversation, it's a different thing. And I think that's how we've gotten into this place.
Well, and here's the other thing. If you are simply just opening the door for somebody, then I get what the commotion is about.
Right.
Like you're not representing the buyer to the best of their abilities by just opening doors for them. The other thing that really pisses me off is when agents tell their clients, I'll write up the offer for you. Just contact an agent on Zillow or Redfin or Trulia, have them open the door for you, and then just act dumb like you didn't know. That I'm not here for at all.
No.
But let's go back. Okay, so let's talk about the National Association of Realtors. So each state has their own Association of Realtors.
Correct.
And then we have a national one, because everybody wants their hand in the cookie jar. So what happened was National Association of Realtors decided that they were going to settle the suit for $418 million.
Yep.
And I want to dive into that. So what does that mean? You said, okay, did you read the whole thing?
So I read most of it.
Okay.
Let's be honest, I haven't finished it.
I didn't read even most of it. And the reason that I didn't is because this came out, Monday? Was it Monday that this all?
Friday the news broke.
Okay. And as I mentioned, I've taken 5 listings, so I have been really busy with my people.
It's like over 100 pages. But I will say, to their credit, NAR has put out like fact sheets for realtors and FAQs, and there's a lot of resources, and I think it's like facts.realtor. But you have to log into your NAR account to access all of the documents.
Right. Which, thank you, because you totally sent me the link, by the way. She's like, in case you want to read this. I'm like, I do eventually.
I was like, here's my Google Drive link. Let me make it easy. No one's going to. I went digging. I mean, it wasn't super easy to find. But anyway, so I sent it to a few people. I was like, here.
Thank you. I appreciate it, because I will be reading it. I do want to know what it says in its entirety. But to make a long story really short, when it comes down to it, there are some things that are changing. So, and if I'm understanding correctly, there's still a judgment that still has to happen. So even though we settled, somebody has to approve it, correct?
Yeah. So it's really the proposed settlement as of Friday morning. It has to be approved by the court. And even so let's back up further. There's other settlements that are in place for companies like Anywhere, Keller Williams, I want to say Remax, and those other settlements have already taken place, and they're going in for final approval by the court in early May.
Okay.
Those settlements aggregately add up to roughly $205 million.
That's so gross.
So,
and remember, attorneys are going to take anywhere between 30 and 40%. Have you done the math? I did the math.
I didn't do
it's
that.
$125 million just on that 418.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah.
Okay, but anyways, congratulations, lawyers. You guys are better than the ones that the National Association of Realtors hired for us, which is further proof why you should hire the best real estate agent. I mean, it's all case in point. I saw a podcast or a reel or something where this gentleman literally was like, this is why people hire amazing real estate agents. Because in this situation, had we hired the best attorneys, we probably wouldn't be settling. We probably would have won when it came down to all of this.
Well, okay. So I want to back up there too.
You should, because my ADD will kick in.
I love it. Same.
And I go everywhere.
I do too. And so us together is my favorite.
Me too.
So there is some benefit. Like let's address that too. Because so I'm a boutique independent broker. I am my own broker. And the NAR settlement addresses brokers that have a sales volume under $2 billion.
Yes.
So we are protected. And as an independent broker who would have to hire my own attorneys and all of my own representation, I don't have the corporate backing that many people do. So for me, I'm like, okay, cool. I'm now part of the settlement. I am protected. And there is some benefit to that. And I think that, I think it's more beneficial as an independent broker, but it's also beneficial to everyone under that $2 billion threshold.
Agreed.
And I'm actually not sure who owns your company.
Cam Mirage owns First Team Real Estate. He owns all of First Team Real Estate. So
Okay.
any First Team that you see up and down California, and we are only based in Southern California. That is our specialty. That's where we are at.
Amazing. Okay.
Yes. And then everybody else, obviously we refer outside of that.
So then you're definitely.
So I'm in that same realm with you.
Yeah, you're definitely under the settlement agreement. And I think that it's important for, I don't know, I think this opinion could go both ways. I've had realtors sort of spit it back to me in disagreement, but I think it's important to know who falls under that $2 billion and who doesn't. And, so, like Home Services does not fall under it. Compass does not fall under it. And their settlement, if they want to participate in the settlement agreement, they would have to roughly come up. I did do some of the math on this, but there's a formula, and this is in the settlement agreement. This
saw
is the
that
part I did scan, actually.
Yes.
And there's a formula, and it's like 0.0025% of their volume, which I think for Compass, and, not to get into other brands, I can't even do the math on Home Services because the number's so big.
Right.
But I think it's got to be in front of it for the billions.
Oh, shit.
But for them to participate, so NAR gets 4 years to pay this $418 million.
To who? Who are they paying it to?
To all the plaintiffs of the class action.
Okay, understood. Okay.
And so these other companies that are not currently participating have, I think, like 120 days.
Participating in what?
In the settlement.
Thank you.
In the settlement. So, so the companies that are not participating have, I don't know, a couple months. It's basically right now to put those funds, all of those funds, into an account. So I think that for the consumer right now, listen, is that going to affect our day-to-day business? No, but I think you need to know who you're really signing an agreement with. And consumers are signing agreements with agents, but those agents are governed by brokers, and you are ultimately executing an agreement with a broker.
Yes, and that is something that I make very clear as well. And the best way, if you are in Southern California, we can have dual representation where you represent both the buyer and the seller. I know there are some states that do not allow this. So the best way that I explain that the contract is held with the brokerage, not with the agent, is I simply state in dual representation, if another agent from First Team Real Estate sells your property, technically that's dual representation because it's from the same broker. You each have your own representation with your agent, but the brokerage in and of itself is representing both the buyer and the seller.
Okay, so what do you think? This is like opinion time.
Okay.
Do you think that's going to go away?
Dual representation?
Mm-hmm.
I don't care if it does. I think it should.
I do too.
Okay. Here's the thing. Don't come after us. Oh my gosh. Okay. Please. Okay. This is just my opinion. Well, I don't care. Come after me. Like we're here to talk these things open.
These are our opinions.
It was so fun. By the way, I had a guy on TikTok comment on one of my reels. Did you see this, Billy? Where he was like, "You're not educated. You're Y-O-U-R." And I was like, bro.
Oh, boy.
Okay, you're right. Like, I do only have a high school degree. Like, let's start there. I did not go to college, but I definitely went to the school of hard knocks, okay? And I learned the hard way. Anyways, no, but I started cracking up, and then this guy, he was so sweet. He put an asterisk, and he put your with the apostrophe R-E, and I clicked on his page, and he has like 14,000 followers and stuff, and I'm like, I put up little hands. I was like, touche, you're the man. Thank you for like having my back. I was cracking up. And chances are it's a bot because it's user 186522354, all the numbers. So I was cracking up. I'm like, I can't even. So I don't even know why I told you that story, but because don't come after me.
Yeah.
Okay, here's the thing. I have been doing this for 18 years. I have dual represented a total of probably 5 times. And of those 5 times, only 1 time do I think that the buyer and or the seller was just upset at the situation. I don't think that they were necessarily mad at me. I think there were, other circumstances like happening around them that just led them to be pissed off at everybody. But needless to say, in my line of work, like you mentioned, I don't pay for any marketing for myself. I do not market myself. The only marketing that I pay for is my website, and that costs me $50 a month to run. That is the only thing. All my marketing dollars go to marketing the properties that I'm selling and also going into loving on my clients and throwing big client events.
I was just going to say, let's not forget about your house-anniversary cakes.
Yes, my house-anniversary cakes. I know, I just finished those yesterday. I have one more to deliver. It's getting delivered on Friday. I had to freeze it. But anyways, so I market back into to my clients because my clients are always referring me and sending me a ton of love through referrals. So that's where my marketing dollar goes. So for me, if I'm making a dual representation, chances are it's because it's somebody I know or it's a past client.
Right.
And the last one that I double ended, it worked out great. The guy whose house I was selling was actually in my wedding, and the person who was purchasing their home is a longtime sweet client of mine. So it ended up working out great.
Makes sense, yeah.
But if I would have pissed either one of them off or one of them felt like they got a better deal than the other, I'm getting 0 referrals from them. Yeah, and the house that I sold was like $1.2 million. So yeah, that would have been a great payday. Absolutely. But for me, I would rather get the referrals and the longevity of that client than once. But, okay, because I want to also say, in dual agency though, I feel like there's no need for it. There really isn't. I feel like you open yourself up to a ton of litigation. And the other thing that I'm thinking of is if I don't dual represent and somebody comes into my house, my listing, not my house, but my listing, and is like, I want to go with the listing agent. Well, I'm currently representing this person. You're going to have to go find your own agent. I think I'm bringing value to other agents in order to get that client under contract on a buyer broker agreement. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like if I take a listing and my sellers do not want to offer a buyer co-op, I'm going to explain why I highly am against that. But if they decide that they don't want to, and I'm still willing to take that listing, because I think that's the biggest thing here.
It's going to happen now, yeah.
Right? If I list it for 3%, then if I'm representing the buyer, that's dual double the work for me, right? Because now I have to go to all the things and schedule and be there.
People will argue that it's not, but it is double the work.
It is 100%. It's double the paperwork. Like it's all the things. I'm not here to do double the work for less.
Right.
For less money. Like I'm just not. And I think that's a big key that a lot of people are missing. Like
I agree.
I can tell you no. I can say I don't want to work with you for this price. You can tell me what you want to pay me. And if I say no, thank you, find another agent who will, then you need to find another agent who will. Okay, go, because I know
you can see me.
Yes.
I'm like, oh, I need to respond.
Go.
So first of all, with dual representation, I like to sleep at night. And when I am representing both sides, I literally cannot sleep at night. It is the worst feeling in the world because you wake up thinking about both clients. Have you served them both correctly? Have you said something to one that you didn't mean to say? You get stressed.
Yes.
And so I like to sleep at night. So that's why I don't, as a rule, do dual rep. However, like you, I've probably done it like 5 times, right?
And how long have you been in the business?
I've been licensed since 2006.
Okay.
And worked in escrow in Beverly Hills from 03 to 06.
That's incredible.
So forever.
Okay.
But yeah, I've done it a handful of times. And one recently as last year, actually. And in that situation, it was a true probate. And the buyer came into the open house. And I was able to bridge the gap in pricing to reach agreement. And the market was crazy last summer because interest rates were so high. And so in that situation, it made sense. And it's very rare that I rep a buyer that walks in off of my open house. But in this case, it just happened that way.
Sure.
Sometimes you just click with people and you're like, oh, you're my people.
Absolutely.
But in general, so my probate sales, frequently they're grandma's house. Sometimes they're an investor special. They take all forms, right? But when they're an investor special in particular, all day long, my phone is ringing. Will you rep me? Will you write the offer for me? Will you, right? The last thing that I want to do is write an offer for an investor or even a regular buyer that is going to buy one of my probate listings where my sellers are exempt from knowing much about that house at all. Right? They're exempt from a lot of disclosure. But even in a regular seller situation, how can I represent the buyer in investigating that home to the fullest nth degree when my job to represent the seller is to mitigate that, is to help protect the seller, not to stop the buyer from investigating. Of course, they need to investigate.
Right.
But to sort of like limit that damage, so to speak, right?
Yes.
So how can I, as one person, do that truly? A broker who has multiple agents and there's a wall between those agents, you can do that. But if it's really one person, in my mind, I just don't think you can ethically do it unless there is a reason, right? Like unless the parties They could be family members. They could be friends. Like there are reasons to do it. But generally speaking, it stops me from sleeping at night.
Yeah, I totally get that. And I know that there are a lot of agents out there. I wouldn't say a lot, a handful of agents out there who will only double end their
Right.
deals. And to me, that's shady AF. Like,
Well,
what?
Okay, so let's take this back to the NAR settlement. So actually, the reason that clear cooperation exists is because agents were, and this plays into some of those like coming soon rules and things like that too, that have nothing to do with the NAR settlement, but agents just are generally aggravated by. But ultimately, like protecting your, I think we're going to go back to this, and this actually is going to do a disservice to the consumer. But this is why we had it in the first place. Agents would limit the access to the property so that they could get the buyer, so that they could do dual representation and do both sides. And without the clear cooperation rules that we have in place currently, where, you have to, I don't know how to explain it properly.
Well, we couldn't, you cannot market a property. When you take a listing, you can only market that property to your brokerage for a certain amount of time. You have to have a SELM form, which is a seller exclusion form, where the seller understands that you're only gonna market it to your brokerage, and then within a certain amount of time. Exactly. And then after that said date, then it's gonna go on market, and then it opens up. So your seller has to be very aware, because our MLS states that you have to be on the market within, what is it, 24 hours or is it 48?
24 hours.
That's what I thought.
Once you publicly market.
Okay. See, so to me, it's like, I just do the SELM form. I market to everybody because it doesn't matter to me, because I'm not going to double end it. I'm not personally going to represent both the buyer and the seller. So I would totally agree with you on that.
But that's happening in the marketplace, and that does play into the rules that are coming and what's going to happen with buyer broker agreements now, I think.
So I actually think the settlement is going to help agents.
Yeah.
Because now,
I agree.
Now agents cannot just, according to the settlement, if everything goes as planned, agents cannot just show a property. You have to have a buyer broker agreement with these people. Now, I have so many times heard a buyer say, well, I want the agent who's going to get me the best deal and who's going to do this and who's going to do that. So they're out working with multiple agents. I will not work with people like that anyways. But needless to say, there are agents who will. I think those agents are going to go bye-bye.
I agree. But to be fair,
please,
I recently reviewed the buyer broker agreement because I don't use it that often. And I was like, okay, let me refamiliarize. And there is a checkbox on there that says you can be working with multiple agents. So it doesn't have to be exclusive, but you do have to sign it. So I think there's going to be a lot of wiggle room, because I'm thinking about think about an investor buyer, right? They absolutely do not want to sign a buyer broker agreement, because they are those people who are like, bring me the deal, right? They're working with multiple agents for multiple houses. So then the other checkbox I took extra careful note of on the buyer broker agreement was you can have exclusivity with that client that you're showing for a list of properties or for specific properties. So I think what we're going to start to see a lot as listing agents is buyer's agents coming through and having a buyer broker agreement for that day's showings. If they're not skilled enough to bring the buyer to an agreement for, a certain period of time for all of their work, then it's going to be, well, sign the agreement for these 5 properties I'm showing you today.
And here's my thing. If you're not that skilled enough to get them to not sign, but agree to work with you because you're that good and you've sold yourself, not sold yourself, but showed what you're worth. Yes. Yeah. Then do you really want to be with them all day anyways? I really think, and the other thing that gets me too is, let's say, hypothetically speaking, I decide that I'm going to take you on as a buyer, okay? And you say, Lauren, I'm only willing to pay you 2%. And I'm like, oh, shit, I really wanted 3 or I really wanted 4, whatever it is. But fine, I have nothing else going right now, which is not the case, horrible in and of itself. Fine. But if I take you on because I have nothing else going on, and then all of a sudden my phone rings and Billy calls me the next day and is like, Lauren, I'll give you 3%. Who do you think I'm going to spend my time with? Now, there are things set forth in our Association of Realtors that tells us that we have to treat you both equally and everything. And because I am the amazing agent that I am, I, of course, would
Of course you would.
Well, I probably wouldn't. I would charge what I charge to
Right.
both parties, period, or I can't work for you because I don't ever want it to be like, well, she worked harder for that other client because
Right.
he was willing to pay her more. That's going to be the next set of lawsuits.
But the scenario you just described was with the buyer saying, I'm going to pay you X or I'm going to pay you Y. And ultimately, you and I are not going to be agents like that. We are going to dictate to our clients, this is what our fee is.
Yes.
So it's a good example. But I think in reality, once all the dust settles, we're going to say, this is what the fee is.
You and I, yes.
Yeah.
But agents who got their license yesterday, that's the other thing too. I think we fail to realize, I mean, we probably don't fail to realize it, but just stating the obvious, it's extremely easy to get your real estate license. Like it is.
The
it's not.
bar of entry is going to be high.
It needs to be high.
I'm happy about that.
I totally agree because, I had no idea what I was getting into in complete transparency when I was getting into real estate.
Same, and I grew up in it.
Same. And I did not. Yeah. So, but now knowing what I know, it's like, oh my gosh, this does need to be treated like a business. Okay, we're going to end on this one last story, Billy, and then we're good. Okay, so I was in Trader Joe's last week. Did you see my post about being in Trader? The people at Trader Joe's, they are just my people.
The nice people. I did see that.
They're
the nice
so
people of Trader Joe's.
Wonderful. Okay, so before I was checking out, it was in the frozen food section. And I was picking up oatmeal. And this girl walks up to me and she's like, is that oatmeal good? And I looked at her and she goes, you are so beautiful. You look like a badass. Like you look like you're in charge. What do you do? And okay, I was in my Lombardos and Associates hat, my Lombardos and Associates shirt, and I had like a sweatshirt on. Like I did not look like to the nines by any means. But she's like, I love your lipstick. Like you look so put together. And I said, oh, I sell real estate. She's like, is that your company? And I go, yeah. She goes, so what else do you do? And I was like, I don't know. I'm a mom. And she goes, no, like what else do you do for work? And I stopped and I thought, this is the public opinion of us.
Yeah.
When I found out that 49%, I think Alicia actually said this on a not a podcast, on a webinar, 49% of real estate agents sold 0 homes last year, 0 to 1. The remaining 51%, the average was 3. Mm-hmm. That is disgusting. So yes, when you do sell 3 homes a year, you do have to have supplemental income. When you sell 30, 40, 50 homes a year, this is your career. This is something that you're doing. So we are going to have a part 2 because we kind of went totally full on into the agent side of this. But I want to talk about the consumers. So consumers, please tune in next week because I have so much to tell you about how this is going to affect you. I do think that it was important that the consumer listen to this episode though, so they know what to expect from their agents and they know how an agent could potentially treat them, I suppose.
There's just so much here. I think we're talking about both sides of it, and it's just going to come through because it's all intertwined together. But speaking to your Trader Joe's story,
please,
the hobbyists are going away, and I am here for it.
I am totally here for it too. Now we're going to all start running this like an actual business, and we're not going to look like or have the reputation of used car salesmen.
Amen to that.
Poor guys. I'm sure there's some great ones out there.
Yes.
Thank you for hanging with me.